Welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go with them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, we're doing part 9. Yes, part 9 to this crazy long soap opera of a story titled, I Ditched My Bride on Our Honeymoon After I Saw Her Cheating, and 5 months later, she's back and pregnant. And guys, as I always say in these very long sagas, at this point, I'm not doing a recap. You guys all know what's going on, so if you don't know, definitely go back, watch all the crazy episodes. It'll take you all day, and you can join us on the latest edition of the crazy folks over here. So I'm just going to jump right back into where things are going on, and he'll actually do a little recap at the beginning, so it'll be good. So he says, hello SSM. It has been 3 months since my last update. I work at my uncle's construction company. My uncle's CFO was supposed to help me take over his job before he retired next year, but he had a minor heart attack at the beginning of March and decided to retire early. So I had to jump in 60, 70-hour weeks. Well, it's called paying your dues, man. Now that he's feeling better, our retired CFO comes in for a few hours to help and check my work. I can use all the help he has been giving. I also have my baby son living with me full time, so I haven't had much time for much else. It's now the middle of May, and things have been crazy, so I thought I'd take a break from everything and write down what has happened since February. Well, I'm going to place a big bet here, that given the subject matter and the people involved, a whole lot of crazy has been going on since. As a very brief recap, my wife Jill and I, both 24, married last June and went on our honeymoon to a resort in the Caribbean. There we met an American about our age who worked at the resort. Her name is Jane. I found Jill and Jane having SCX at a nightly beach bonfire where locals and tourists met to get high, drink, and hook up. I left for home, leaving Jill in the Caribbean with her new girlfriend. Handle it like a boss, man. I'm sorry it happened. Jill flew back home 5 months later, pregnant with my son. I had 2 DNA tests on him. He is my son. Jill and I in the middle of our divorce. Jill went to live with my fraternal twin, Amy, her husband, Alex, and their baby son. Amy's pregnant with a girl due in June. Alex overheard Amy telling Jill about her body count in college. Alex and Amy agreed to be exclusive when she was away at school and getting married as soon as Amy graduated. But Amy didn't think that being exclusive applied to her. Well, it never does. Alex decided he didn't want to remain married to someone who betrayed and deceived him. He also had a DNA test on his son and the girl Amy is carrying. The son is his, but the girl that Amy is pregnant with is not Alex's biological daughter. Amy got pregnant by some random dude on the beach when she was in the Caribbean. Their divorce is also in process. This is the year of divorces. My mother's fervent defense of both Jill and Amy's infidelity made my father suspicious about my mother's faithfulness. I had a DNA test done, and my father is my biological parent. He's not the biological father of my fraternal twin sister, Amy. It turns out that fraternal twins can have different fathers. Well, I learned that. That's what happened with me and Amy. My father read my mother's diaries and found that she has never been faithful to him. Not when they were dating, not when they got engaged, not through their entire marriage. He got his own apartment and is divorcing my mother. I feel so bad for your dad. My God. But now you know why your mom was defending your freaking soon-to-be ex-wife and Amy and all that. Duh. My sister, her son, along with Jill, are living with my mother in the house I grew up in. Yeah, I'm sure that's a whole lot of fun. Jane, Jill's lover from the Caribbean, showed up at my mother's home in January. Jane said she came to help Jill through the pregnancy, and chaos followed. Well, add another hen to the hen house, we expect. Then Tony, a boyfriend of Jill's from college, turned up. Oh boy, enter Tony. He's a salesman for a pharmaceutical company, and our town is part of his territory. He travels through every few weeks and is trying to reconnect, or probably already has reconnected with Jill. Oh, he's reconnecting, but in a different type of way than you think. So, my last update, Jill and Jane were living with my mother because the situation at my mother's with Jane there was so volatile. I took my son to live with me. That's right, you were debating on whether you should get him out of there before they left the country or something crazy like that. Amy asked to stay in my place with her son. She could help take care of my boy, so I agreed. Amy, her son, and my son moved in with me. Yeah, that was kind of like making a deal with the devil. Yeah, she could help you and her situation's bad, but she's just as much of a wacko and an a-hole as the rest of the gals in this story. At the time of my last post, my mother, Jill, and Amy were trying to get me to forgive and forget Jill's treachery. Fat chance. And Alex to forgive and forget Amy's treachery. And my father to forgive my mother's treachery ain't happening. Alex, my father, and I steadfast in our decision to divorce our wives. Jane wants Jill to move back to the Caribbean with her, but now she has Tony as competition for Jill's affections. Jane doesn't believe that Tony is just her friend any more than I do. Jill tells me that both Jane and Tony are just friends, another lie among so many others. There are so many lies circling around. I mean, how do you keep track? Amy is not my dad's biological daughter, but he wanted to maintain their father's-daughter relationship, until my father found out that Amy knew that my mother was unfaithful. As a teen, Amy ran to my mother when she was out on a date with one of her lovers. My mother asked Amy to keep her secret, and Amy did. My father sees that as a betrayal. He no longer talks to Amy. Well, and some could say that Amy was, rock in a hard place situation, but Amy's actions have demonstrated she's not exactly a very decent human being, so fuck her. A lot has changed since the February update. In February, Amy was... Okay, now we're getting on to the new stuff, guys. Told you it was a long recap. But then again, it's a long fucking story. A lot going on. In February, Amy was at my place helping take care of my son. I finally found a nanny I liked and hired. I told Amy that she and her son could no longer live with me. A huge fight ensued, but with the live-in nanny moving in, there is no longer room for her and her son in my place. Amy wanted to know why I needed a nanny. She could help with my son. I told Amy the main reason I want Amy gone is that she lies about everything. Well, of course. I told you you made a deal with the devil having her move in to help with your son. She lied to my father about our mother, she lied to me about Tony not being Jill's lover in college, and she lied to her husband Alex about her own boyfriends in college, and about getting pregnant on a beach in the Caribbean. I wanted her out, but where she and her son would go became a problem. Alex wouldn't even allow her in his house when she drops off or picks up their son. My father isn't talking to her. Jill told Amy that it's not a good idea for Amy and her son to return to my mother's, and Amy and Jane already had one fist fight. Things would just get worse if Amy moves back to my mother with Jane there. Doesn't Amy have any fucking money? Doesn't Amy have a fucking job? Really? My uncle Jake stepped in. Amy and her son went to live with him. Well, no good deed goes unpunished, Uncle Jake. Uncle Jake is my mom's brother, but has taken the side of the divorcing husbands against the unfaithful wives. He is our staunchest supporter. He took Amy in because she's his niece, and she had nowhere else to go. Amy has a boy she needs to take care of, and is due to give birth in a few weeks. Uncle Jake took her in because that's Uncle Jake. Well, Uncle Jake's a good man. I think Uncle Jake introduced you to my channel, so shout out to Uncle Jake. But I hope Uncle Jake's kindness doesn't come back to bite him in the ass. We'll see. My father is living in an apartment. My mother, with Jill and Jane, are in the house I grew up in, and my father and mother have agreed on a divorce settlement. No alimony. Hallelujah. And father gets the house without having to buy out my mom. My mother can live there rent-free as long as she wants to, but has to pay the property taxes, utilities, and upkeep on the house. If she doesn't pay the property taxes or keep the place in good shape, my father can evict her. Well, very good. Hope that's in writing. The settlement is done. The house title has already been put solely in my father's name. They're just waiting for a judge's signature for the divorce to be finalized. My father is seeing a coworker, a teacher at the high school where he teaches. Smack! No. Daddy-o, you need to get through all this shit and get some time to heal before you go jumping into bed with somebody else, let alone a teacher. We know the stereotypes about the teachers and the nurses. And if you don't, do some Googling. I met this girl. She's a widow, is very nice and very pretty. It's tough seeing it with someone other than my mother, but all of this is tough. Alex is divorcing my sister Amy, and she has an attorney, and Alex is obliged to pay for her. Isn't that crazy? God. Their issues are child support, custody, alimony, and a division of assets. Anything else? They've been married less than 2 years, and she's carrying another man's baby, but Alex thinks their divorce will be the slugfest and will go on forever. Amy is still hoping for reconciliation, but that's not in the cards. Alex has already moved on. I believe he's seeing someone, but he hasn't been willing to talk about his love life at our Sunday support sessions or with me when it's just the two of us. Alex, if you're listening, you should not be seeing somebody else. I get that can maybe distract you with the madness going on in your life. No, it's a bad idea. This is an at-fault state. He may be worried that Amy will find out, turn things around, and use the infidelity against him. I'm hoping I'm wrong about him being involved with somebody else. My father's divorce is basically done. Alex is not even close to being done. A girlfriend will complicate things for Alex. You're damn right. That's why you don't want to mess this thing up. Not to mention the healing process you got to get through before you get involved or date somebody else. Come on, guys. Common sense here. Don't let your emotions and your dick take control here. Use your mind, your brain, the thing between your ears, to run the show. So Jill comes to my house to visit her son. I don't want her near my son without me present. It's too easy for her to take the boy and run, which is exactly what I did. I'm working so much that her visits with the son are less frequent, something Jill's very unhappy about. When I first took my boy out of my mother's house away from Jill got an attorney and they were pushing for an expedited custody hearing, hoping to get the boy back. Early in March, my attorney called me to tell me that Jill was no longer seeking the expedited hearing to resolve the custody. He doesn't know why, but good news for me. If Jill does nothing, I'll have my son at least until a divorce hearing. And since I'm doing such a great job caring for my son, a judge just might say I should just continue to do that. Well, one can hope. Fingers crossed. Jill sets up visits through the nanny. She comes and I sit with her and my boy in the living room. She tries to engage in small talk, but I either ignore her or put on my headphones. In early March, after it was clear that I knew about her S-word relationship with Tony in college, she told me she wanted to explain about Tony. I can explain! I told her I didn't need an explanation. She just said she needs to tell me about Tony. I repeated that I don't want to hear about her and Tony. I'm not interested. Her need to explain to me makes her feel better, but not me. What she wants and needs aren't that important or all that's important to her. I do not care anymore about what she needs and wants. Jill started crying, shocker, and I put on my headphones. And that wasn't the end, though. At the next visit with our son, she gave me a letter that she wrote for me. She said the letter was about her and Tony, and I can read it or not. Yeah, I'll get right on that. And the letter goes in the fucking fireplace. So I read it. Why? Don't ask me why. Well, I already did. It contains the usual excuses, justifications, and denials. Before we went off to college, I asked Jill if she wanted to pursue a relationship during our college years. We'd be away at different schools with lots of temptations. If she or I wanted to be free to explore, we would not feel guilty if the two of us were on hold. She said she didn't want that. Of course not. Keeps you on layaway being a good boy. Meanwhile, she's off having fun with Chad and Tyrone in the dorms. She was very upset that I even suggested that she would ever want someone else. Did I want to be with other girls? No. We agreed to be completely faithful to each other while we were away at college. Fine with me, and I meant it. Evidently, what she meant was that she wanted me to be faithful to her. Her being faithful to me was more of a maybe. I'll summarize her letter. She met Tony her sophomore year. Now, you know what? That part, I'm going to say, is not important. I'm actually going to skip that part. We'll go on to the main story here. I think at this point, you guys will get the picture. She's a cheater. She's going to gaslight. Who gives a fuck? So I'll jump ahead to the rest of the story here. Anyway, Tony got her pregnant because they were both too drunk to take any precautions. Remember, he got her drunk back in college. She took care of the pregnancy because it wasn't my child. She didn't do the same with our son when she got pregnant because we were getting married, and she wanted to begin our family. She sees Tony now occasionally, but just as friends. Yeah, sure. If I'm worried about Tony, just tell her. She'll drop him like a hot potato. The same with Jane. Just say the word and Jane is gone. Yeah, I'd be like, I don't care. Have Tony, have Jane, have them both in a big Jane and Tony sandwich for all I care. Just stay the fuck away from me and our son. We can have the wonderful life together we've been planning since high school. If only I can get past the idiotic mistakes she made with Jane and Tony. She was stupid and will never make those mistakes again. Yeah, You want to put some money on that? I've been listening to lies from my mother, sister, and Jill my entire life. The past few months, I know they're telling me lies, and they know that I know that they're telling me lies. Because of all their lying, I think I've gotten pretty good at deciphering girl speak. You mean just pretty much everything's bullshit? I believe I can now listen to girl speak lies and understand what really happened. I'm going to try to translate. Jill's letter from Girl Speak lies and half-truths to the real story of her and Tony. Please bear with me, though. Girl Speak is not my first language, and I'm still learning, so I might misunderstand some of the ways of what Jill said in her letter and get some of her lies wrong. Anyway, here's my translation. Jill and Tony met when they were immediately attracted to each other. Tony becomes very attentive, flattery, flirting, dinner, surprise gifts. Jill loves his attention, but Tony was seeing lots of girls in college. Jill wanted Tony to be smitten with her so he would give up the other girls. Jill wanted him, and she would get Tony to want only her. A big triumph for Jill over the other girls. They'd all be jealous of Jill. She and Tony began to hook up a lot, so much that Jill thought Tony wouldn't have the time for the other girls. Tony repeatedly told her that she was more desirable than any of the other girls he's been with. That's what Chad and Tyrone say. That's how Chad and Tyrone get what they want. She was beautiful, smart, and sexy. Tony was a constant ego boost. Ding, ding, ding. Attention and validation. And ego. She deserved to feel good, and Tony made her feel good. But Tony somehow found the time to keep seeing other girls. How about that? Jill got pregnant, maybe by accident, maybe as a way of roping Tony in. Nah, that wouldn't happen. Regardless, Tony told her to take care of the pregnancy. He didn't want children and was not going to marry her. There was no way to explain her pregnancy to me, so she followed his advice. Sounds about right to me. She said in her letter that she kept our son because she wanted to start a family with me. The truth is she kept my baby because she knew she would have to return home from the Caribbean sooner or later. She knew from my mom and sister that I wanted out of our marriage. If she came home pregnant with my baby, she figured I'd eventually take her back. For the sake of the child, if no other reason. The pregnancy was her leverage to keep me in the marriage. Yeah, gee whiz, I don't think that's the first time in history that a pregnancy uses leverage to keep a guy around. That's my translation of Jill's letter from her girl speak lies to what actually happened. I know I'm making a lot of assumptions, but I bet my description of what occurred with her and Tony and why she remained pregnant with my son is more accurate than the BS Jill wrote in her letter. Bro, I agree with you. I think your translation is pretty good. The next time Jill came to see our son, she asked if I read the letter. I told her yes, and we're still divorcing. Can we talk about it? No. And then there was more tears. Hobag Handbook, Chapter 2. I put back my headphones on and closed my eyes. But after she dropped her attempt to get custody, I was curious about why, so I asked. She told me I was doing a good job with the boy. She liked the nanny I hired, and Jane thought it would be better if the boy stayed with me. I wouldn't trust this behavior of hers. There's an ulterior motive here. Jane didn't want to take care of the boy at any time, but especially when Jill was out talking about old times with Tony. This didn't make sense to me. Jill wouldn't let me keep the boy simply because Jane doesn't want to babysit or because Jill likes the nanny. My mother is always willing to watch her grandson, and Jill doesn't know anything about the nanny. Stupid to even think I get anything approaching the truth out of Jill. You're not. When I told Amy she had to move out of my place, she called my mother to let her know that Amy and her son are moving back in. 5 minutes later, Jill called to tell Amy that she had to find someplace else to live. Jane and Amy under the same roof was a recipe for disaster. Hey, bring it. Hook up some cameras, some microphones, and we got quality entertainment for some place you can put that show on. Amy called me at work crying. She and Jill have been close friends for 20 years. Why was Jill treating her like this? Jill was always taking Jane's side. Well, because Jane services Jill in ways that Amy does not. If it was a problem with Jane and Amy to be under the same roof, Jane should be the one to leave. Amy has no place to go. Can she continue to stay with me? No. Amy moved in with our uncle. Amy no longer talks to Jill. The soap opera continues. Jill does seem always to take Jane's side. Well, no shit, because, they're servicing each other. I asked Jill about it when she came to see our son. Jill said there are things about Amy I don't know. Amy came to the Caribbean last September supposedly to convince Jill to return home. Amy was more interested in exploring the nightlife on the island than convincing Jill to do anything. Jill's pregnant, couldn't drink or get high, and was not interested in random hookups, or interested in performing with Jane on the beach for other people's entertainment. She and Jane stopped going to the nightly bonfire beach parties almost as soon as I left last June. Jane missed seeing her friends, but she stayed home with Jill most nights. Uh-huh. Something tells me we're going to get something spicy pretty soon. When Amy arrived at the island of sin, Amy insisted on going to the nightly beach party. The first night, Jane and Amy had SCX on the beach. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we know why they can't be under the same roof. Imagine that. Jane is something. They didn't tell Jill. Jill wasn't supposed to know. But Jill returned early from a doctor's appointment the next day and overheard Amy and Jane talking. Jane wanted to continue their hookups. Amy said being with Jane that one time only confirmed to Amy she's not into women. She told Jane that she was here on vacation. What, Amy had to hook up with a girl to understand she's not into women? Newsflash, I don't need to hook up with a dude to know I'm not into dudes or sausage here, but okay. She was free to do what she wanted and what she wanted to get drunk, high, whatever, and have fun with men. As many men as she could. Jill said Jane does not like being denied, especially since Amy was rejecting Jane after they had SCX. Jane prides herself on her love-making abilities. Oh, give me a break. It's amazing to me how these people think that they're like, they're the ones that wrote the Kama Sutra. That they're like the goddess of love or the god of love. Get the fuck out of here. Jill told me that's why Jane treats Amy so badly. Jane is a woman scorned. Uh-oh. Jill said she was furious at both of them. Amy and Jane thought it was somehow okay to cheat on Jill. After she thought about it, she got over her anger at Jane, and Jane is Jane. Jane wants to munch on any human over the age of 16 who squats to pee. And that is just Jane. Being mad at Jane for pursuing women is as stupid as being mad at a dog because the dog barks. Jill smiled and told me Jane even tried to hit on my mother. I asked if Jane succeeded with our mom. Jill says she doesn't know, but never bet against Jane. Regardless, Jane is always there for Jill. So Jane is like the female Chatter Tyrone. She's always on Jill's side. Jill doesn't really care about who Jane takes out to eat. But there is no excuse for Amy. They've been closer than sisters for 20 years. They had no secrets from each other. Bullshit. Or so Jill thought. Since Amy thought there was nothing wrong with betraying Jill by effing Jane, Jill started to wonder what else Amy had been doing behind Jill's back. Amy destroyed Jill's trust in her just because Amy was curious about what Jane did to Jill. What Jill's attraction to Jane was about. But Jill can't get past Amy's treachery. Jill said she doesn't need friends who are untrustworthy. I asked Jill if she was being a bit of a hypocrite. She looked at me confused and asked what I was talking about, and I put my headphones on. Oh my god. She knows, but she's just playing dumb. And by the way, there's too many fucking J's in the story. Jane and Jill, and you get the point. So Amy got what she wanted on the beach every night. When Jill and Amy were sunbathing during the day, people walked past them, used Amy's new nickname when saying hello. I asked what was her nickname. Mademoiselle Fellation. Jill said that means Miss Blowjob. Amy thought that was funny and seemed proud of her new name. Yeah, welcome to Sodom and Gomorrah 2.0, where a girl is actually proud of being called Miss Blowjob. Jill told me behind Amy's back, Amy was also referred to as Dirty Butt. When they were sunbathing, Amy would describe her adventures from the night before. Yeah, I don't need to get into details on that one. You can all figure that out. Jill thought Dirty Butt was a fitting name for Amy. Once after Amy described being with two men at the same time the night before, Jill half-seriously pointed out to Amy that she was married and had a child. Amy just said, not in Guadalupe. Jill said Jane had pictures of Amy's interactions on the beach. Did I want to see them? Pictures of my sister having SCX? Not really. Maybe they'll be useful to Alex in his divorce. Yeah, send them to Alex. Before Amy left to go home from the Caribbean, she told Jane that she'd be back to visit as soon as she can. A longer stay next time. Jane should save Amy's spot on the nightly bonfire. Jane told Amy that no one was going to go anywhere near Amy's spot on the bonfire. They roped it off and are putting up hazardous waste signs all over around Amy's spot. Jill finished her story about Amy by saying Amy had her fun in Guadalupe, but she's also pregnant and is getting divorced. Jill believes that that's karma's way for Amy's betrayal of Jill with Jane. Whatever, these people are all assholes. They all deserve what they get. Interesting that Jill was angry at Amy because she hooked up with Jane and not because she was unfaithful to her husband and son. If Amy had not slept with Jane and only cheated on her family, Amy and Jill would still be the best of friends. Evidently, it's not a big deal to cheat on your husband, but unforgivable to do that to your friend. Well, there you go. That sums up these, let's be honest, hoe bags here. So, guys, that is the end of part 9. It's a long one, so take a break. And I'm going to continue on part 10 in a couple hours. I need a break here. And we'll see more where things are going with these crazies in this guy's life and all that. And I assure you, it'll be worth coming back for part 10. See you then.